Right, so I'd like you to take a look at this. The other day, BBC Newsnight came out with a discussion where in the background Jeremy Corbyn was pictured as a Russian. Here he is in front of the Kremlin and Red Square. Now, we'll just look through at the moment. We'll watch this, right? So,
Jeremy Corbyn misread the mood of his party in the Commons yesterday when he refused to point the finger at Russia.
and you can see in the background, obviously there, Jeremy Corbyn is pictured as a Russian stooge. Now, if we look at the BBC editorial guidelines here, I'll put the link in the description, we can see that the BBC says, "Impartiality lies at the heart of public service and is the core of the BBC's commitment to its audiences." Now, looking back at that image, I wouldn't say that's particularly impartial, would you? I mean, like it or not, if you agree with his politics, you might not. That's not impartial. In fact, that's actually dangerous. So, with everything that's going on in the world at the moment with Russia, we've got the leader of the free world, Donald Trump, saying that Russia's a threat, that they meddle with the elections, and he's condemning Russia. We've got the leader of our country, Theresa May, condemning Russia for the recent neurotoxin attacks. Russia is seen as a shady threat. So in this picture here, we've got Jeremy Corbyn pictured as a communist leader, and that's dangerous. Maybe you oversee this, but people in our country, perhaps the Brexit voters, will see this as a threat from Europe, a place that they voted to leave, the EU, not Europe as such, but the EU. And here Jeremy Corbyn is pictured as a threat, as a communist stooge, and I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's acceptable for any leader, especially not the leader of the opposition. I mean, in this country, definitely more than other countries, the left and the right more so work together. Labour and Conservative and the Liberal Democrats work together to run the same country, and ultimately we're all in the same boat. And the BBC here, the impartial BBC here, is impartial in their own words, has actually released an article only 3 hours ago at the time of this recording, rejecting complaints over the Corbyn Russian hat edit, as they're calling it. So, what they're saying, as you can see here in the screenshots, is Mr. Corbyn has been photographed wearing this particular hat and coat many times, and they were not in any way altered or photoshopped to appear more Russian. Yeah, I'll agree with you. Jeremy Corbyn has been photographed wearing that precise hat and coat many, many times. But the thing is that it hasn't been many times that he's been edited in front of the Red Square and the Kremlin. And it's just not acceptable. Now, the BBC does argue that this edit is a rehash of one that they used a few weeks ago, I believe, with Gavin Williamson. And they're using that they've displayed the left and the right wing with the same edit as justification for what they've done here. And how about we take a look at the tones of both of the scenarios with Jeremy Corbyn and Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson in the two different clips. How about we take a look at that now?
Jeremy Corbyn misread the mood of his party in the Commons yesterday when he refused to point the finger at Russia.
Now, two contrasting headlines this morning concerning the Defence Secretary. On the Telegraph front page, Gavin Williamson warned Russia is ready to kill us by the thousands. In the Mail, Mr. Williamson was confessing to an office romance and how it nearly destroyed his marriage.
So in the Corbyn clip, you can see that they're saying that Corbyn is refusing to condemn Russia for the neurotoxin attack, which happened against a Russian agent. Now, I have mixed opinions on this. Theresa May did outright say that Russia was to blame for this. There isn't much evidence at the moment, so I can understand where Jeremy Corbyn is coming from, but I can also understand why that could be seen as the wrong thing to do. But given the evidence at the moment and nothing particularly pointing to the Russians doing this, I will go ahead and say that Jeremy Corbyn, perhaps as leader of the Labour Party, doesn't want to take any steps too far out of his zone of comfort, otherwise he could be judged later on. Now, when we look at the Gavin Williamson comments, we see here, even on the side of the screen, a quote from him in the newspaper saying Russia is ready to kill by the thousands. Now, that kind of proves my earlier point in that the BBC is using conservative quotes to make Russia a threat and then using those to plaster Jeremy Corbyn and smear him as a Russian so that people view him as an enemy. Now, you may disagree with me, you may agree with me. To be honest, I don't really care. What I'm here to do is I'm just trying to show you that the BBC isn't quite as unbiased and impartial as they say they are. They are a government agency. They're going to do and say what the government wants them to do. Now, if there was a Labour government, I don't doubt that perhaps they would be smearing the Conservatives, and as there's a Conservative government at the moment, obviously they are smearing the Labour Party. I just want people to be aware that the BBC is not as impartial as you believe it is.